Hello, everybody. Oh, I apologize about my hair again. Woo. Let me pull this down, and it's like my camera is a little bit off again. Oh, I don't know how it gets off. Cats, probably. We can blame the cats. All right, I see two of you have answered my little poll here. Thank you very much. Oh, and I forgot to put the link. I only saw that message from Karen earlier, like 10 minutes ago. Now I don't know how to do that from here now. I'll do that next week, Karen. Oh, okay. All right, guys. Let me quickly go to the website and make sure nobody's asked any questions. It's raining out. That's why I'm a mess. Went to go drop my wife off and got clobbered with the rain. So let's see here. Were there any questions that came in? I don't see any. Let's see here. No new questions. So let me also look. Hello, Karen. Hello, Gabrielle. Gabrielle says, hi, hello, Eddie and friends. Karen says, hi, should we warm up at all before the routines? No warm up before the routines. That's actually a good question. Because I think there are some people that just assume that they should have a warm up beforehand. No, these routines have warm up built into them. So no, you don't have to. And I know that's a short answer. Usually I have longer answers, but that's the short answer is no, we don't have to do that. These routines were designed, they work as warm-ups and they also work as routines. In fact, depending on how you do this, you can also use them for uh coming back after a long time, where you go just each day. So let's say you haven't played in 5 years. Each day you come back a little bit deeper into the routine. So you start with air exercises. Then you do air exercises and lip buzz for a day, maybe 2 days. Then air exercise, lip buzz, and mouthpiece placement. And then the next time, lip buzz, mouthpiece placement, and then some mouthpiece buzz. And you just go through that same order a little bit at a time, reintroducing yourself to the trumpet. Okay, that's what it was. I had turned my. Now you can see all the stuff on the floor. Karen says, even the hardest routine that takes me to the top of my range, no warm up. That's correct. And there's a mental side of that too. The warm up, I have never written a routine that you should need a warm up for. And there's the mental side of this is making yourself be ready when it's time to play. Boy, this is driving me nuts. Making yourself be ready in that moment. That's more of a mental thing than it is physical. It's a whole bunch more mental than it is physical. When it's not like you have to get the muscles ready. That's not what it is. Usually, when we struggle, if you have a hard routine and you're not ready, you have struggles at the top. That struggle is not a physical struggle. It's a now I say it's mental, right? Mental in the sense that it requires coordination. Well, there's going to be, when you struggle, there's going to be an imbalance. Too much air, not enough air. Too much lip strength, not enough lip strength. Too much of the tongue arch, not enough tongue arch. There's an imbalance happening when you struggle like that. And now, I would say this. Everything I'm saying here about not needing a warm up would be negated if you're going too quickly and not being deliberate enough in the routine. If the way you're playing the routine is just, so let's say, just as an example, the long tone, and I'm just going to make something up, but let's say you have a long tone. If that's how fast you're playing it, then yes, you're going to struggle when you get to the higher stuff. That same exercise should have been more like this. And then the horn comes off. Take a breath. And then take the horn off your lips. If you're not doing the exercises slow and deliberate like that, then yes, you can have trouble when you get to the harder stuff. Not because you didn't get warmed up, but because that coordination didn't kick in. That coordination between the air and the muscle and all that stuff that has to be balanced. When we slow it down and become more deliberate, it invokes that balance that we're talking about. Ha! Invokes. Fancy word day. Gabriel says, Eddie, is the C trumpet harder than the B flat? Do you think I can play both in the same practice session? If yes, which one is better to play first? Um, Let me take those one at a time. Is the C trumpet harder than the B flat? Not necessarily, no. Here's the problem. This is my theory. Don't I'm making this up. I shouldn't say making it up. This is 100% me. I did not get this from a book or anything. This is my theory. You know that the trumpet has tendencies. The E tends to be flat. The G tends to be sharp. The low E tends to be sharp. C sharp is very sharp. D is sharp. There are tendencies throughout the instrument, quirky. Now, they're actually not quirky. They actually make a lot of sense when you know the science behind the overtones. I believe that what happens is that trumpet players get in their ears an expectation of those intonation tendencies. We have this expectation based on the B flat trumpet. When we pick up the C trumpet, some of those tendencies switch. A good example of that, F sharp on the B flat trumpet is sharp. E natural on the C trumpet, if you play open, some people don't. Some people play E natural 1 and 2. I think that's a practice that's gone away lately, but that's a practice. That's something that we were taught when I was in college. But if you play on the C trumpet, the E open, that note is flat. Now think about how jolting that can be to your ears. If you're accustomed to hearing that note, F sharp on the trumpet as sharp, and now you're playing it on the C trumpet. and it's coming out flat. That can be disturbing because to you it's going to sound out of tune because of your expectations. I believe that's what most people struggle with when they play C trumpet for the first time is those expectations in intonation. Uh, and so that's the biggest struggle. The second question you say, do you think I can play both in the same practice session? Yes, you can do that. I've done some of that. I don't do as much of that as people recommend. I don't think it's necessary to practice all the horns all the time. There's somebody I listen to on podcast. One of the guys says that he does every horn every day. I don't see a need for that. I really don't. My piccolo sits in the case most of the time, and I don't ever have trouble playing my piccolo. My flugelhorn sits in the case most of the time. I play it a lot on the gigs. I don't really play it much at home when I'm practicing. Uh, that that just was never something that seemed like a necessity to me. Same thing with the C trumpet. Now, um, your third question is, oh, but now that I said that, but that doesn't mean that you can't do that. I chose not to do that because um, I think that having a B flat trumpet, and this is specifically for me. I'm not recommending this for anybody, right? I think that the B flat trumpet is my home base, and the other horns are an outreach, a branch out from there. My main instrument is the B flat trumpet. If I play the C trumpet, which I don't have one right now, you guys have heard that story, I think. When I play the C trumpet, it's something that I uh, uh, am using as a different tool, but it's not my main horn, right? So anyway, but that doesn't mean other people have to do it this way. Like I told you, this other quasi-famous trumpet player says he plays every instrument that he owns or not that he plays on every day, and that works for him. So that's fine. You see what I'm saying? Now, if yes, which one is better to play first? The What I was taught in the old days, and this was not just one teacher that taught me this, several teachers taught this. What I was taught is that you always start on the B flat first. You warm up on the B flat. One thing I will tell you is that the literature you plan on on performing on the C trumpet, should probably spend at least some time practicing that literature on the C trumpet. Um, I hope that makes sense. You should spend some time. I say some time because when I practice a piccolo piece, I learn it first on my B flat trumpet. The exception is if it's something that utilizes the fourth valve, then I can't do that, obviously. But a lot of the piccolo trumpet stuff doesn't use that fourth valve, um, except for alternate fingerings, like tuning up the D or whatever. Um, so yes, that's why I say you should spend some time because with the piccolo trumpet, I don't spend a lot of time, even if I'm working on the literature, I don't spend a lot of time practicing on the piccolo trumpet itself. I know that in contrast to that guy that I told you I listened to on the podcast, um, that if you believe what he believes, then what I'm saying is probably considered almost a what's that called, heresy or something, right? Anyway, I hope that answers the question. Javier says, "Hello, Javier. Um, hello, Eddie and trumpet players. I hope you are all doing fine. I am, thank you. And Chop's getting stronger. Haha, yes, sir. Jeffrey, hello, Jeffrey. Nice to see you. Javier says, for quick warm up, I do a very short free buzzing mouthpiece and on and off, and then mouthpiece buzzing and slow chromatic scales with bending up and down. That sounds pretty good. That still has that physical trumpet pyramid structure to it. You know, a lot of people think, and this is something that actually makes my teaching a little bit more difficult now with the private students. I think sometimes when they come to me for lessons, it's as if they're looking at me as someone who has a set method. I'm going to teach them my method, and everything's just going to be wonderful. Well, the method itself doesn't work like that. It's not set up like other people's methods. The method really is all about finding. It's a general approach to finding weaknesses in the students playing so that we can deal with those weaknesses systematically. It's in that sense, it's not really a method the way people describe. I mean, it's when you look at what the Claude Gordon method is. This my method is not like that. My materials are, you can often use them as diagnostic tools. That's why I say not everybody has to do the lip buzz. If lip buzz doesn't work for you, don't do lip buzz. You don't have to do um, pedal tones. If pedal tones don't work for you, don't do pedal tones. Take that part out of the book. And for that matter, and this is what I'm getting to the point here. For that matter, you don't have to actually do the exercises that are in my books to get the benefit of that structure. The reason I wrote the books is to make it more convenient for the students, because the materials that are out there don't fit that structure completely. You have to modify the traditional exercises, which is what I did to create the method in the first place. You have to modify the traditional exercises to make it fit the method. So it's just a lot more convenient, and that's what you're paying for when you buy the books. It's just a lot more convenient to just do my books because the exercises are already fitting that structure. But before the books existed, I was taking the traditional exercises, uh, uh, Clark, Arbin, um, I forget the one, Schlossberg, uh, the Chickwitz exercise, the all of these traditional staples. I was using that stuff and altering them so that it would fit the range I wanted, altering them so that it would fit the length that I wanted, fit the key signatures I wanted. I was changing all of that to make it fit this system. And basically, I used to call it the physical trumpet pyramid, because I talked a little bit about that in the original physical trumpet pyramid book. But now I really call it the one range thing, because the physical trumpet pyramid is one part of it, but the overall approach is that one range approach. And so when I'm talking about, so the physical trumpet pyramid itself does not include the range limitation or the range expansion like we do with the scales, right? When we do the tonalization study, we want it to go to the top of our range for that day. And the traditional exercises there was nothing like that. I hope that makes sense. Cardo, hello Cardo, nice to see you. Cardo says, hello Eddie and friends. Karen says, if you have time to answer, how would you teach a brand new beginner? Beginners, in my opinion, are I don't, and I don't mean this to discourage anybody because I actually find it very exciting, but they are the hardest ones to teach. Beginners are the hardest ones to teach, just like it's just like teaching a student who doesn't know how to read. I got to do that with my son, right? I homeschooled my son, and I got to teach him how to read. And that's an amazing thing. How do you get someone to learn how to read who doesn't know that there is such a thing as reading? Right? And it was a wonderful, I'll tell you what, teaching my son how to read is actually enhanced my teaching overall because it made me really dive deeply into the whole learning process. And I actually, with him, I've emphasized the reading part. It's not that I de-emphasized anything, but there was priority given to reading because I told him all along. I said, this other stuff you can teach yourself. If something goes wrong along the way, and nothing did go wrong, but hypothetically, if something goes wrong along the way, if you can read, you can have access to the information to to teach yourself history, teach yourself math, teach yourself science. You can learn anything if you can read. So I told him that's what we're putting a priority on. But that was the hardest thing to teach him. Teaching trumpet is was my approach to teaching trumpet was enhanced by that experience. So anyway, so how do you teach a new beginner? The most important thing is to treat them like an individual. There are no rules. If you This is how things get messed up with the beginners. You cannot say that this is how it is or that's how it is. The process of learning to play trumpet as a beginner is a discovery process. It's a discovery process. So now, because of that, we do not as a rule, we do have a tendency to start with buzzing, just because when they do the buzz, the mechanics tend to be right. There is one kind of improper buzz that is not beneficial. That's when the lips overlap. So the bottom lip goes inside and the top lip goes over. I can't do it. There are people that buzz like that, and that is not a proper buzz. I think you might get some benefit buzzing like that, but it's not much. I'm going to demonstrate that for you closer to the camera. See how my bottom lip is going inside? We don't want that. We don't want that. So if you are teaching a beginner and they buzz like that, do what you have to get them to. Now that's a tendency with the people who, like me, have an overbite. Okay, there is a tendency with overbites to put the lip over, and that's a bad thing. Because and the reason it's bad is because you don't have the same muscular control over the vibrations that way. So that's one thing to look for. But like I said, oh, and by the way, once again, I want to stress that this is not a rule. And when I stress that it's not a rule, it's because even with the beginners, buzzing is not a requirement. It's not a prerequisite. It's not something that has to come first. We do start with it. But if they can't do it, that doesn't mean, hey, this is not going to work. I have an adult student that has a lovely, lovely sound. And the very first time he buzzed for a band director, his band director told him, you can't play trumpet because based on his buzz. And that's a ridiculous thing to say. This guy has a wonderful sound, and I would bet that he's always had a wonderful sound. Um, in fact, he's got a better sound than me. He's an adult. I think I forget how old he says he is. I think mid 60s. Um, Beautiful, beautiful sound. And and that's what I'm saying is if we treat lip buzz like it's some sort of prerequisite that has to come before you play the trumpet, that kind of false logic can kick in. And it can be, look, fortunately for him, it didn't discourage him. Obviously, it made an impact on him because he's still talking about it today, right? But it didn't prevent him from learning to play the trumpet. But that is it making a statement like that is definitely not helpful. Anyway, getting back to the point, um, the physical trumpet pyramid structure is the same structure I use for teaching a beginner. We start with a lip buzz. We do a mouthpiece placement. Then we do some stuff on the uh, mouthpiece. Now, let me back up a little bit. I also have my beginners do solfeggio before we start. Long before we start buzzing, and I have them do solfeggio on the same exercises that we do. And this is something that I have written out. It's the same exercises that I have them do the buzzing on. That way, when they do get to the buzzing, it's not that big of a deal for them. So, and I'll give you a kind of a a overview of the exercise that I have them do. It starts with just C. Of course, we start with one note, but when you're doing solfeggio, you don't just do one note, right? So solfeggio, we're gonna do do re do, and I want them to do that 10 times. Sometimes, if the student is too young, and it looks like the repetition is going to drive them away and not be my student anymore, or worse, drive them away from the trumpet. Sometimes I'll be a little bit more lax on the 10 times thing, but this 10 times thing is powerful. And the truth is, the ones who can tolerate it are the ones who do better because of the impact that the 10 times has. I'm reading a book right now about practicing, and it has quotes from famous, most of them are pianists, and that's one of the things that they talk about is how important the repetition is. And so anyway, so yes, we we would do solfeggio, that do re do 10 times. Then we're going to go down. Do, ti, do. We'll do that 10 times. Then we'll do a combination of both. Do, re, do, ti, do. Do that 10 times. Then when they pick up the mouthpiece or on the lip buzz, and like I said, if the student is demonstrating that they are okay with the repetition and it's not going to drive them away, I will have them do that lip buzz 10 times. It's beneficial to do that. Now, once you've done the 10 times, you never have to do that exercise 10 times again for the rest of that student's career, because 10 times is enough. That's the beauty of 10 times, is that it puts it where it needs to be in your mind, assuming everything is correct. And that's why, and let me mention that too. I know I'm going on for a while about this. Let me mention that too. Um, I almost prefer that the students don't practice when they're beginners, because you can't know for sure if they're doing it right. It's fine to say, okay, I'm going for it. the enthusiasm that they have, the ambition that they've got. But a lot of times it's that enthusiasm and their ambition that take them, because if they do it wrong and and with that ambition repeat it 10 times incorrectly, they are making things worse, not better. So I actually do prefer in the beginners lessons that they don't practice except for in the lesson. And the only thing that they're allowed to do on their own time is what we've already done 10 times in the lesson, with me watching them, making sure they're not getting it wrong. This is very important. So, yes, we do the solfeggio going up, going down. It's an expansion. So do re mi fa mi re do ti la so la ti do. Right? We're gonna do all that to get their ear thinking in this way. Then we do the lip buzz. Then we do the mouthpiece placement. Then we do the mouthpiece buzz. Then we do the same exercise, but with the trumpet, right? Same pattern. Now, this is not what I just described to you guys is not exactly how I do it. Those aren't the exact notes that I use. And part of that is because different students start off with different first notes. Some of them have high first notes, some of them have medium first notes, and some of them have low first notes. And your approach has to adjust to that. This is why I say it's so difficult to teach the beginners, is because you have to be flexible with them. The system is still the same, the order of things that you use, but to lead each student in that process of discovery of how to play the trumpet really requires a great deal of sensitivity to where they are already. What what foot do they already have in the door at this point? That is an overview of my approach with them. I have a lot of materials that I've collected over the years based on this, and I judge the student by how difficult something is, and according to which direction we're going to go in those materials. Eventually, I will publish those materials, but right now that's not going to happen. It's still not complete. I still have beginner students that stump me, and that's where the materials come from. By the way, anytime somebody stumps me, what I mean by stumping me, they have a need and I don't have the material to fit that need. So I write new materials for that student. And eventually I will put out a book. It'll be the most difficult book I ever wrote because uh, trying to take into account this flexibility, yeah, that's difficult. All right. Javier says, when going down on the chart, I struggle sometimes with the transition of to lower notes like G and F sharp, but mostly when I try to hit those notes alone cold. Never happened with the high notes. Any advice? Yeah, so that's not atypical. Um, Now, I don't normally jump to this conclusion, but sometimes that can mean that your mouthpiece is too small. Now that I've said that, let's go on. I don't normally jump on that, but it is a possibility, and the reason why is because if the mouthpiece is too small, you can't really. It's hard to manipulate your lips in a position to get to those low notes. Um, that said, my advice for that is to practice the the lip bends And your lip bends do not have to be half steps. You can do like a lip bend interval exercise. And it should be slower than what I'm doing it. I'm just demonstrating. That's a wonderful exercise to help you get used to putting your lips in that position to get that note. And you can do that on each of the different fingerings. Um, by the way, that's how I introduce people to pedal tones if they need it. Some people don't need it. Some people you say, okay, do a pedal tone. It's the note beneath this with this fingering, and they just go, boo, they play the note. Other people don't. It's not as easy for them, and we have to go through an exercise like that to encourage them to feel that difference. So that's my biggest advice for that is lip bends and pedal tones. Um, and also intervals. The Urban book is nice. I don't remember it because I don't do these exercises all the time anymore like I used to. I think that's one of the ones from the Urban. I might have gotten some of it a little bit off, but doing that back and forth between that low note and the higher note, that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, why those exercises are in the Urban book to begin with. Now, those kinds of exercises are already in my routines. I told you guys that the exercises in my routines were basically reimagining the staples. That exercise I just played now was the original, and then I modified that to fit my system, and then I modified it again and modified it again until it became what it is now. Very different from what I just played, but you're still getting that low to high, low to high, low to high, and that's a very important for what you're talking about. It forces you to deal with this problem. By the way, that's what my routine is. That's what the concept was when I first developed the routine. Is I thought to myself, because I didn't have a teacher that could help me, and I thought to myself, if I just forced myself to confront these issues on a daily basis, I trusted that my subconscious mind would work this stuff out. And that's exactly the the strength of this etude. On etude. The strength of these routines, this approach to a routine. All right, Gabriel says, Eddie, again on different trumpets, please. When I practice Hummel or Neruda on E trumpet, shall I warm up with the same routine as it would be a B flat trumpet? Ah, no, warm up on your B flat trumpet and then practice on those other, practice the Neruda, practice the Hummel on those other, on that, on that E flat trumpet. Okay. Practice, do your routine, do your warm up on the B flat trumpet. Then, once you're warmed up, you go to the E flat trumpet to practice that. That's how I would, if you were my student, I would say that's how you should do it. Cardo says, Eddie, could you please give me a mini masterclass on resonance? Yes, sir, we'll do that. Um, Resonance is a physics phenomenon. It's a resonance is when the air and the metal and the room vibrate sympathetically. That's a term that they use in that field. Sympathetic vibration. Okay. So what happens with resonance is if you play, now we're going to talk about trumpet resonance here. If you play a pitch precisely at the center the of what the instrument is tuned to. This is a little bit confusing because when we talk about intonation, people will pull out their tuner and say, well, the note is sharp or flat. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sharp or flat to the actual trumpet. So I could pull the slide out, and I'm not going to do that to demonstrate because I'm in the middle of recording something and I don't want the pitch to be different. Um, I could pull my slide all the way out. Now the intonation that it's going to resonate at, the frequency that resonates on this trumpet, is now going to be a lower pitch because the slide is farther out. So we're not talking about what's in tune on the tuner. We're talking about what's in tune on the trumpet. By the way, one of the reasons why, and I say one of the reasons, there's a bunch of reasons why we do lip bends. One of the reasons why we practice lip bends is because we want to train ourselves to be able to hear where that center of that pitch is. So it's just like the violins that tune. They always make it flat first and then tune up the pitch. Now there's a technical reason why they do that. Because the pins stick. You don't just, if it's sharp, you don't just pull it down. You pull it flat first and then you tighten it. Okay? You pull it flat first and then you tighten it. And it's and they tighten it until it gets to pitch. We're going to do the same thing with the lip bend. And that helps us over time, not just immediately. I do the exercise 2 or 3 times and now I can find the pitch. No, over time, it helps you discover where the center of the pitch is. Now, when you do find that center and you vibrate the frequency exactly at that pitch, all of the things that all of the physical properties of, they call it closed pipe. And once again, it's a scientific term, closed pipe. That's what trumpet is, closed pipe. An example of open pipe would be a flute or clarinet. A closed pipe has what they call the standing wave. And when you make when you vibrate at that precise frequency, according to the length of the tubing, that standing wave becomes strong enough that it enhances all the vibrations. Your instrument itself will vibrate. The air in the room will vibrate. I had an experience in a brass quintet rehearsal one time where my flugelhorn was resonating so much. It actually became a confrontational rehearsal because I could not get my volume down far enough on the flugelhorn. Now, it sounded soft to me, and I was playing soft almost to the point of sucking instead of blowing, so to speak. Um, and they were still hollering at me because I was covering up the other instruments. And I truly believe that was a resonance thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that my resonance was better than their resonance. Don't get me wrong, those guys are all better players than I am. It was my instrument. I was playing on my Yamaha flugelhorn, um, and that horn was resonating so strongly that I could not get the volume down to make them down far enough to make them happy, to balance with the rest of the group. Now, that said, I did eventually get that soft enough, but I'm telling you, it was unreal. It was really unreal. And I'm not talking that we all had pianissimo in our parts. That wasn't the case. It was a mezzo forte, if I remember right. And I could not get down. I was in the pianissimo range volume wise, and it was still louder than their mezzo fortes. That's the effect that resonance has. Once you have true resonance, there's sympathetic vibrations all over the room. You fill the room up with your sound. And by the way, when you do have a resonant sound, a truly resonant sound, it makes playing the trumpet easier because the instrument practically plays itself. This is why we strive to play better with better resonance. Now, if you understand that resonance happens because you're playing to the center of the pitch of the trumpet itself, there's a contradiction there because we're supposed to be also in tune with the ensemble. And just like Charlie Geyer told me in that one lesson, he says the trumpet is a naturally out of tune instrument. Well, if the trumpet is a naturally out of tune instrument and you're going to play to the center of the pitch, that means you're going to be naturally out of tune or you're not going to get your best sound. So, what do we do about that? And this is once again something that Charlie Geyer taught me in that one lesson. We have to know that he told me you have to know the tendencies of the instrument and adjust. So when you adjust, if we're going to um, have that resonant sound, we have to adjust in a way that doesn't require us to lip up or lip down, because when you lip up or lip down, you're no longer at the center of the pitch of the horn. And you won't get that resonance. And it's going to be harder to play the trumpet because you're now going to have to work harder. So the way we adjust is with slides, right? We use our slides or we use alternate fingerings. Now that's mostly a classical thing. That's mostly a classical thing. You know that thing that pisses people off, right? The jazz guys get angry when you say, "Oh, well, you tune up," and then you say, "Oh, well, it's close enough for jazz." Well, the truth is, it's true. The jazz, the need to be in tune. What do you call that? In the tolerances. The tolerance of intonation in the jazz world is wider. It's okay to be a little bit of out of tune in jazz compared to, now that sounds sacrilegious to the jazz guys. The jazz guys could actually be pissed off now at me for saying so. All I'm saying is that the tolerances in the classical world are just tighter. The range that they consider to be in tune in the classical world is, it's like, here's jazz, here's classical. There's still the same, there's still some wiggle room on both of them. It's just there's a lot more wiggle room in the jazz world. In classical, that wiggle room is a lot more narrow. And that's why, if you want to become a classical musician and you go to college for that, a lot of time, I mean, a lot of time is dedicated to playing in tune. Believe it or not, if you consider yourself, let's put it this way, word it in the negative. You cannot consider yourself a classical trumpet player if you don't take that aspect of intonation seriously, enough to spend hours a day on it. It's one of the most important topics that they ever talk about, and it goes hand in hand with the sound thing, right? I told you guys before that that classical music today has become sound centric, which I don't approve of. I think sound is important. I just don't think it's ultimately important. I believe expression is the ultimate importance. Sound is second. But the reason I'm mentioning that now is because sound and intonation are like this. You cannot have that sound without the intonation. So that's one of the reasons why the classical guys spend so much effort, time and effort and energy working on, talking about, discussing, researching intonation, is because of the resonance. So there's your master class on resonance. I hope that helps. Now, how do you work on resonance? Well, first of all, I don't think it's possible to achieve that resonance without listening to trumpet players that have that resonance in their sound. And the benefit of hearing that resonance is multiplied when you hear them live. You want to go to as many classical performances. That's the classical guys that play this way. The jazz guys don't. Some do, most of them don't. Because with jazz, what we do is we try to get our own sound, something that's unique to us. And part of that is playing low or high to the pitch in a very specific way. So we want to go see classical performers, hear them live. If you can take lessons with them, even better. Tell them that's what you want to do. You want to hear them play so that you can soak up that sound. Then you do your pedal tones. Then you do your lip bends. Then you do your long tones. And over time, you will start to recognize that, hey, what I'm doing on my horn does not sound like what they're doing. I don't believe it's possible to reach that point in your playing where you're playing truly resonant without hearing lots and lots and lots of those resonant players, because you won't recognize the center of the pitch when you get there. You won't recognize it. Okay. And yes, that almost makes it sound like it's almost I've been using the word lately, what's that word? Like when you carry a rabbit's foot, superstition, right? It almost sounds superstitious, what I'm telling you about resonance. I being needing to hear it first, because if what I'm saying is true, this is the part that makes it sound superstitious. If what I'm saying is true, then just playing to the center of the pitch will make you sound different. Mathematically, that's how it works. Practically, that's not how it works. And I think the reason for this is because we're not one sum individuals. There are other things that can cause you to have an inferior sound, even if you are in the center of the pitch. Getting a good sound is not only from playing in the center of the pitch. You can actually have a less resonant sound for with other different problems going on. So so yes, we want to listen as much as possible. Now the recordings, I told you it's best if you do this live. The recordings are also equally important because you can spend more time listening to those. But I even with that, even with the recordings, I don't think the recordings have as much meaning or as much benefit without the live performances to back them up. Actually, I got that backwards. It's the recordings that enhance your experiences with the live performances. You know, I have a student that lives in a small town, and Mary Elizabeth Bolden went to gave a concert in his town, and I told him absolutely go see that, go see, and if you can get a lesson with her, get a lesson. Because how else, if you live in a small town, where are you going to get that sound? Where are you going to hear that sound live? So when they are there, you have to make a priority of getting out there to hear it. So yes, the lip bends are important. The mouthpiece, I mean not the mouthpiece, the the long tones are important. All of that stuff is important, but none of that's going to work if you're not doing the listening. Okay, and you guys know that I have a whole series, a long series of videos on listening. I think you guys already know that. If you haven't watched them, I strongly recommend. I think it's the series that I did last year. I think are some of my most important teaching videos. I did a series on stage fright. I did a series on listening, and one other one. What was it? I can't remember what it was, but there were three series that I did this time. I started, I think, in August or September. This time last year, and I went all the way to the end of the year. Oh, the third one was on culture. Those are some very important videos, and if you haven't seen them, I strongly recommend that you go see them. Now, before we run out of time, I want to encourage all of you guys to vote on this. I don't think I can see. Don't be afraid if you to do this what do you call it? The survey. Don't be afraid to do the poll at the top of the chat. I don't think it tells you who answered what. Okay, so you don't have to be ashamed, like, or feel like you're boasting if you practice 20 hours a week. You don't have to feel like you're bragging or something. Okay, um, I just want to see how many people answer this poll because if you guys do use the polls, then I'm going to do more of them each week. I think that's they call it engagement. You know, when you start calling it stuff like engagement, then starts becoming fake. I don't want to. You know me, I hate fake. The last thing I want is fake. But if we can use this as a tool, then I want to use it as a tool. Okay. All right. Let me continue here. Javier says, I'm an upstream player. I guess that affects the lower notes. So yes, the upstream stuff can do that, but you know what? That doesn't change what I said. All the stuff that I'm talking about. You know, here's what I don't like, and this is true for all issues that we talk about. And you guys, this this sight reading series that I started and never finished. I apologize. Um, this sight reading series, I told you guys about my dyslexia and how that made it difficult for me to learn how to sight read or improve my sight reading. Um, but it should never be. I'm all for analyzing what is the problem. I am not in favor of saying, well, I'm this, so therefore I can't do that. This process that I told you about for with the pedal tones, lip bends, and intervals, this process works regardless of what type of player you are. Because it's a process that forces you to deal mentally and physically with the issue. I hope that makes sense. That process works regardless. Javier says, thanks, Eddie. You're welcome. Cardo says, thank you so much. So very good, everybody. Thank you for hanging out. Um, and you know what? We're about to log off. If some of you are watching and get to the end and watching this after the fact, please do fill out that poll. Answer the poll above because I want to see what happens with this. I want to see if the poll actually still runs after the video is posted. So for those of you who are watching after the fact, please fill out the poll at the top. The poll asks you how much do you practice? Less than 2.5 hours. Um, oh, it took it out of order. Because that's the order of. Okay, I get it. So yes, there's options ranging from less than 2.5 hours to over 10 hours. Okay, and I'm not collecting info. I'm getting a feel for um the whole polling thing. I just made that up when I was putting the video together. All right. Oh, Karen says she can't answer the poll. I guess so. The poll should be at the top. Gabriel says, "Where is the poll?" The poll should be at the top of the chat. Now, if you can't do the poll because of how you're watching the video, then maybe come back when you can get on YouTube itself. Come back and see if you can answer the poll from there. Okay? All right, everybody. This was a good one again. You guys always have good ones. Thank you. Good questions this year. I mean, this year. I'm- my mouth is on a different planet right now. Yes, thank you. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, and God bless you.